Welcome back to Clank in Space, How to Play, and what are the differences between this one and the other Clank. So, we were just talking about some of the cards having some abilities with their faction, and so here we have another faction. I believe this is known as the Science faction, and so let's say you play the Collector on a turn with this one here, Monkey Bot 30,000. Well, when you play it normally, you get +3 Clank, but you get to draw 3 cards. If you had played a card before Monkey Bot 30,000, like the Collector here, then you'd also get to activate the ability -3 Clank, which is pretty nifty. You put 3 Clank on there because the card tells you to do so, but then you get to take it off if you can activate that ability. And so basically you got to draw 3 cards as a bonus without actually having to deal with Clank, which is really cool. I like that a lot. But I was only able to pull this off one time the entire game, and it was with these 2 cards, actually with these 2 cards. So, now here's another thing. Let's say the other card is this one here, the Android Assistant. Now, the Android Assistant isn't actually part of the faction. It has a faction ability, Science faction ability, but it doesn't have that corner on the top to indicate that it's part of the faction. So therefore, these 2 working together wouldn't actually activate the faction ability because they don't belong to the faction. They just have that faction ability. So you would still need the Collector or any other card that has that faction in order to activate these abilities. Now, let's say if that wasn't the case. Let's say the Android Assistant and the Monkey Bot 30,000, let's say they actually did have that faction. They were part of that faction, and they also had a faction ability. If that was the case, you still could only activate one of these abilities, because whatever card you choose has to be the one that can't activate the ability. So if you decided, I'm going to play this one first, for instance, an example, then you could use this one to activate this ability if it had the faction. If it was part of that faction, which it isn't, but as a demonstration, that would be the case. But then you wouldn't be able to, you may teleport to an adjacent space. You wouldn't be able to use that. So that's something to note. And so that can get a little confusing. So these abilities with their factions can get a little confusing. And a lot of players, they see this additional ability and they're like, oh, cool, I just activate it right away. But you have to play it with certain cards in order to activate those abilities. So it definitely can get a little confusing, at least with those kinds of abilities. Is there anything else I wanted to mention about the cards? Well, okay, I like this one a lot. I'm just going to say I love the Trophy Hunter. It's one of my favorite cards. When you acquire it, -2 Clank, and then when you play it, -2 Clank. Really cool. I like that one a lot. And it's cheap. And it's part of that particular faction with the furry smuggler too. So that's pretty cool. There's a lot of unique cards that make this one different from the original Clank. But I don't think there was a card in there like this. The Entertainer here gives you +1 Clank. And then for each Clank you make this turn, you get 1 credit. Now I was able to pull this off once. I actually made 3 Clank in the turn because I had to, because that's how Clank works, right? And I got 3 extra credits for it, which is really cool. So you have this ability here to give you some benefit for all that awful Clank that goes to here. Now, what are some of the other differences this game has to offer? There's actually more. I know I've covered a lot of the differences between this one, but there's actually some more differences in this one versus the original Clank. And that actually has to do with the rage counter, where the boss token is. You'll notice on the rage counter we have 4 red cubes, and there's even a token in the middle of them. That is the Blockade Token. We'll go over that when we get to it. But once the boss token reaches a section that has this red token on it, this red cube, this red cube will actually go to the Clank area. And on the next attack this cube will go into the bag with the rest of the Clank. And then, if this cube here is drawn from the bag, it actually is a bounty hunter. And the bounty hunter cube will actually damage all players who are either not... it will damage all players, unless you're knocked out or you've made it to an escape pod. So it will damage every player. Now, that's something the original Clank did not have. It did not have something you put into the bag that would actually hurt all players. And as the game goes on, you could end up having 4 of these in the bag. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, I got rid of it. I drew it, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. Well, no. Because once you draw a bounty hunter cube, that bounty hunter Clank cube will go back to here again. And then on the next attack, it will go back into the bag again. So you'll have to deal with these for the remainder of the game. So this can deal some damage if drawn to every player. So it can be definitely more dangerous for sure. Which is pretty cool that they added that, and that was not something that was part of the original Clank. Now, once the boss token on the rage counter reaches that token there, the Blockade Token will actually go right here. That means players can no longer use the hyperlift from here to here. It stops them from going directly to safety, to the cargo bay. And so then they would have to go down the hyperlift to here and get off at one of these 2 locations here, which is pretty interesting. I like that a lot, so players can't make a hasty getaway. It adds more length to the game maybe, but it's still pretty cool, and that's another difference in the game that the original didn't have. Now, there are definitely some minor secrets and some major secrets that have some abilities that might not have really been in the original game. And we won't go over all of them, but there is one that I really, really like. It's called the Sonic Grenade, and it's a major secret. Each of your opponents immediately makes +3 Clank. Then you return the token to the box. Oh, I love that token a lot. If you're the player who gets the Sonic Grenade and you decide to use it obviously right away, all your opponents will get +3 Clank, which is really cool. That will definitely give you a big advantage over all of your opponents. Now, normally, the rage counter here, the boss token, he will only move up at certain instances, sort of like in the original with the dragon. The dragon would move up only in certain instances. Now, it will move up the rage counter for obviously if you defeat Lord Eradicus himself as one of the cards. And I think there might be another card that does that too. But then it'll also go up when you acquire one of these tokens here, the command code tokens. If you acquire one of these, the boss token's going to go up 1 for every player that acquires it. So if you're playing with 4 players, it's going to go up 4 times just for those alone. And then once you gather an artifact, every player who gathers an artifact, it will go up 4 more times per each player, which pretty much takes it all the way to the top, right? If you're playing with 4 players, well, it can go up another way. There is a, let's see, is it a minor? Yeah, there is a minor secret. So you don't know which minor secrets do it, but there is a minor secret that has some archives as one of the minor secrets. If you acquire an archive, that will anger him as well, and this will go up as well for that. So it can easily go up really fast in the course of this game. So that is something to note. And I think I've pretty much explained everything that makes this different from the original Clank. Quite a bit of differences, wouldn't you say? Alright, well thank you guys for watching.